Hello, all. Welcome to the Lunar Sea Spire Cartoon Fan Podcast. This is episode 301, and today we'll be talking about Monster Visit from Summer Camp Island. I'm GC13.
And I'm David.
So, ever topical, now that Summer Camp Island has released their second season on HBO Max, we're going back to the first half of the first season to discuss what I think is one of the ever-relevant episodes, Monster Visit.
Monster Visit is a wonderful little story about telling your Godmonster that monsters suck and you don't want to be a monster. It's a timeless tale, as old as timeless tales about monsters.
I think that this is less of a monsters suck and more there's no wrong way to be a monster.
I think this episode says there is a wrong way to be a monster, and it's being a monster. This episode does not take a any kind of monster is valid stance. It actually takes a monsters as they used to be stink stance, which I find interesting.
Yeah, okay, I guess we can get right into my core takeaway. I think something very important about this is we never actually see a monster acting monstrously genuinely. We have our monsters pretending to be monstrous to keep the Godmonster happy, and we have the Godmonster pretending to be monstrous to set a good example for our monsters. And she looks up to previous god monsters, but for all we know, they were just pretending to be monstrous for her benefit as well.
Yeah, the family portraits on the wall definitely looked straight up evil, but I can believe that the same cultural expectations that weighed on Godmonster might have weighed on her ancestors as well. Although maybe they bought into it a little more than she ever did. But, she kind of claims that she never enjoyed scaring children or doing any of the monster things.
I just thought it was very relevant. The people pretending to be part of the dominant culture, in this case, monster culture, even though it doesn't make them happy, and in fact, they'd much rather do their own thing, just like our monsters happily do their own thing. They have a duplex, for crying out loud. They even have a garage. I've never seen what they have in there, but they have it.
I love our monsters. I love how much Oscar and Hedgehog are attached to them, and that as they were trying to escape on a rowboat, that they were on the oars, up and down through the waves, saying, "We love you, we love you." I love when Summer Camp Island gets ooey gooey in characters expressing how much they care about each other. And I just love how genuine they are. And, but I like that the monsters, even though they also love Oscar and Hedgehog, were totally fine with leaving the island forever because of how much they did not want to deal with their Godmonster, who truly, truly had horrible things to say to them. And, I get that, she was weighed by expectations of monsters, but I mean, why is your body different than I want it to be, Melvin? That's pretty harsh.
That was pretty on the nose, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other stuff in the episode was a little bit more subtle than that. That was just straight up, come at me, bro.
Yeah, I think the message of the episode is very broad, too, in the different things. Like, I don't know. The way monsters act don't really have a parallel to our world, but I think the way the monsters acting not as monsters have closer parallels. Like, there's expectations of, like, some things monsters do are sort of, like, hyper masculine. Some of them are just straight up monstery because they're like, keep dirt under your nails. I don't know if that's a hyper masculine thing. People having expectations about your body, that applies to a lot of people, So I think it's a good broad message.
Yeah, I think it's more about cultural expectations in general, not about any particular set.
Yeah, which is sometimes I can't say it. Specific. Oh my goodness. Sometimes being specific. Sometimes being specific is good, but in this case, I think the message works this way. And yet it's also really funny. Like, the way that they scheme, the way that Oscar and Hedgehog come up with a way to convince the Godmonster that our monsters are monsters is just so unbelievably goofy. The fact that they dress up, in the Godmonster's words, like, and now I just forgot the Godmonster's words.
Like they came off of a cuckoo clock.
But they looked like they were off of a 17th century German fairy tale. Like, I think their Also, it's not like the Godmonster could hear them, but they were really committing to talking like
Yeah.
like it was a straight up, Brothers Grimm fairy tale. So that was hilarious.
That whole deception was just so ridiculous. I mean, when the Godmonster shows up to take Oscar at the beginning, you're like convinced that she saw through the deception and was punishing them by taking Oscar away. But no, she bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, yes. And how could she not, with Hedgehog saying wonderful lines like, "Heavens preserve me," as she falls. That one really got me.
And Oscar being unable to get out of his hosen.
He did get out of the hosen at the end, though.
I love Oscar's dead eyes as they're skipping merrily forward at first there. I mean, if I had been Godmonster, I'd been like, no, you guys stay in here. There's something wrong about those kids.
Oh, man. I like that they dug into the ground and just got to the Godmonster's house that way, and that was just waved away. I enjoy moments where it's like the writers have to go, well, how would they get there? And it's like, I don't know, they just dug there. That's fine.
I mean, she's a hedgehog, not a groundhog.
Yes, I love that they called it out, and I felt called out because I thought I wouldn't have made that distinction. I would have just
don't hedgehogs
thought that hedgehogs could burrow, but I guess, I'm like, I guess in Sonic the Hedgehog, they never referenced his ability. I don't think he's ever had a digging ability in any of the games, and so I gained a new appreciation for how faithful they were to Sonic's species.
Hold on. I don't see any reference to burrowing or digging in the Wikipedia page.
Yeah, do they just live in bushes or in camp houses?
Yeah, I was going to say they might live in cabins. I did really like Godmonsters. Oh yes, turn them into cookies. I definitely did that.
I mean, the thing is, she said it so straightforwardly, she may have even been, like, it works both ways. She technically turned his likeness into cookies.
I mean, just that whole scene, I'm expecting Hedgehog to eat the Oscar cookie, because I guess I've just been conditioned by Steven eating baby melon.
I know.
Like, that is an appropriate way to pay homage to your fallen brothers.
There was a lot of that, like, comedic tension in my head, where I was like, is she going to eat the cookie, though? But actually, it was just played as straight up heartbreak. We got to see what Hedgehog, how she would act if Oscar had died, or at least been cookied. And it was pretty sad, But it was also framed in a sort of a more childish way. Not childish in a like belittling or critical way, but I just mean as her behavior is, which is that she immediately frames it as a problem that's affecting her. Like she says, what am I going to do now? Like she frames the loss as for her, but she's not as concerned. Like she doesn't say, I can't believe your cookies. I can't believe you're dead. Like it was definitely framed around her personal loss, which I found, pretty accurate to a child's experience.
They mean a lot to each other.
Yeah. Well, it weirdly enough reminded me of like, I had seen a somehow documentary that talked about Sesame Street, and they talked about like an episode where they had death in it, and like Big Bird, when someone died, Big Bird like only took it on. Of course, Big Bird's like 3. I'm going deep into the lore of Sesame Street here. But anyway, Big Bird also framed his experiences as, what am I going to do now that Mr. Whoever's gone, whoever died in that episode? And it just struck me that I think they were aware of some child psychology there. And luckily, Oscar wasn't really dead. Because that would have been heartbreaking.
I mean, Howard gets a little hardcore here. I mean, he gets that monstrous roar coming into his voice there. I mean, ooh.
The monsters, I can't believe it took Oscar dying, though, for them to tell off their Godmonster, but at least they did, and they were truly angry, and they were truly sorrowful. When Oscar walks in, everybody's got a tear on their face. I am surprised that the Godmonster wasn't a little thrown off, though, when they did, just suddenly enter her house, because she should have been like, oh no, Oscar might come back in, and then this whole ruse is up. But instead, it just kind of happens.
Yeah, it's like, what are you dummies doing here? Maybe she was just going to rush him out the back. But, things got too emotional.
Yeah, I mean, or maybe she wanted the same thing to happen,
Yeah, maybe she was secretly hoping that the ruse would be exposed. She did say it was exhausting to her.
This is a fairly, not morally complex, but just, it's situationally, the situation is complex.
Morally rich.
Yeah, like the fact that the Godmonster is performing in a way that she expects, but she can see the harm it's causing, right? It's like, why is she trying to impress, people that clearly don't want to behave the way she's behaving? It's funny that that's how imprinted the expectations are, that she thinks that it would actually benefit them or make them proud of her.
That's how cultures are, I think. She may not enjoy doing it, but, she's like, well, I can at least help them be proper monsters. I can help them be proper members of monster society. And so that is the burden she was carrying, and now she doesn't have to. She can play croquet and say, hey, you play like an old lady. I love this.
I think since she said it's been her whole lifetime that she hasn't enjoyed scaring children, that all the skulls around her house weren't hers, but all those skulls mean somebody at some point who lived in that house liked scaring children and probably eating them, but apparently not eating their bones, but maybe licking them clean. So I think monsters were still pretty monstrous.
Maybe she bought them at the Halloween store.
In Summer Camp Island, maybe. Also, the skulls are still alive, even in Summer Camp Island, so...
Yeah.
She had one skull alarm.
I mean, for all we know, that's a kid who died before he stopped calling her, and he's like, hey, magic. I don't know.
Oh, that would be really creepy if all the
Together
children that she met grew up, died, and then their skulls came back rolling to her house. Oh gosh, except she lives, oh no, she lives underground. They could be buried. They could seep through the dirt and then enter her house. There's something very morbid about that. Oh my.
That would be if she was also a witch. Thankfully, she's just a monster. So I'm guessing Halloween store for most of them. That one, maybe the security company.
Yeah, I'll believe it. I'll believe that's the lore.
I mean, what do you think a monster security company is going to install when you have them out to your monster house to install a monster security system?
See, that's the beautiful thing about Summer Camp Island is you're saying this, and nothing about that sounds like something that couldn't be in an episode. Like, there could totally be just monster-branded everything somewhere on this island, or this world.
Just imagine Susie running a car rental place on the mainland somewhere, and she's like, yeah, I'm trying to rent you a broom. What's wrong with that? It's much more fuel efficient.
Like, Susie has enough of being... She has, like, the con artist in her, but I feel like she doesn't have the patience to actually manage and run a car rental company. So I'm going to say I don't buy that one. But I do buy the Monster Party store.
Hey, 50-50 is not bad. I liked how Godmonster takes that snake and she wraps it around her neck like a shawl or something.
I enjoyed how, I think it was it Howie who put the snake there, but also as he was throwing the dirt all over the couch, he was just so disgusted with himself. He's like, I can't believe monsters are like this.
I loved how they carefully covered the couch with the plastic before putting the dirt over, and then Godmonster never calls them on it.
No.
It's just like, yeah, this is normal.
I mean, of course they couldn't actually throw dirt all over their house, though.
I mean, we just vacuumed.
I'm going to say, I also like the ambiguity of the ages of the monsters. Like, the fact that it's been 100 years or something since they last saw their Godmonster, and the fact that one of them, as they're in the boat, just says, describing the difficulty of leaving, is like, this is just when I left my husband. And I'm like, oh, you've had a husband and the husband's gone. Okay. I have no idea how old they are.
And she had a motorboat.
Well, yeah, that time she had a motorboat. They should have kept that motorboat.
I'm wondering, does this mean that the husband was wrapped onto the propeller on the motorboat, or does that mean that she was able to get away from him faster?
I think it meant that they were able to get away faster. I hope it doesn't mean that she murdered him with the propeller.
No. I'm not thinking murder. I'm thinking him just grabbing on and having a cartoonish, as it spins through the water.
Oh, right. Spinning. I think that would happen in Summer Camp Island's world.
Right, now I'm just imagining an alternate episode where the monsters really are nice, pleasant people, but they're also casual killers.
Like, here's the thing. If you marry any of them, that's when murder becomes a possibility, you know? They're chill with their friends and their acquaintances.
Never let one of them take out a life insurance policy on you.
It's always... and there you go. There's another business right next to the Monster Party store.
How do you think they afforded the duplex?
Yeah, it's just the monster life insurance policies.
Yeah, someone's losing a lot of money writing those. Anyway, guys, that's been us on Monster Visit from Summer Camp Island. Make sure you're checking out Season 2 on HBO Max. Join us next week. Until then, I'm GC13.
And I'm David. HBO Max, please give us money. And also review our podcast on Apple Podcasts.
Later, everybody. Our opening and closing music is by Mark Soto. For more cartoon-related content, please visit lunarceasefire.com.